I want to talk a little bit about the NBA trade deadline that's coming up next week. I want to take a little break from the betting, take a little break from the wagering. I think, let's go back to how it was when we were kids. You know what I mean? We didn't have to slap, $100 on a game in order to enjoy it, right? We enjoyed the love of the game. We watched the game because we loved it. The way the players made us feel, the way the game made us feel, the way everything made us feel, man. That's why we watched it. Not for the money, not for the paper, but for the players and for the game and for the love of it. I don't know why I'm making such a big speech, man. I'm just down a bunch of money right now. We lost a few bets today, so I'm a little bit emotional. You know what I mean? So, I just want to talk a little bit about the league. You know what I mean? Take the pressure off and just talk, just talk sports. So, I want to get into that right now. I want to talk about the NBA trade deadline. I'm not talking about every team. But I am going to talk about 3 teams that are enticing me the most, the ones that are making me I'm most curious about coming down to the deadline. Of course, we got the Bulls in there. This wouldn't be a rant without talking about the Bulls. You got to put the Bulls in that. So I got 3 teams, and we're not starting off with the Bulls, though. We are going to start off with the Toronto Raptors. This is going to be a really interesting trade deadline for Toronto. Toronto's in a weird spot. And they're in a spot of do we add on to what we have? I mean, they have pieces, don't get me wrong. If we do blow this thing up and rebuild, Drake's not coming to games anymore. Rebuild a good team, get some draft capital, or lose Drake. That's the decision they have to make. Drake is not coming to watch a team with a bunch of white, pasty, sour cream looking G League players. He's just not. Drake's not going to show up. Bandwagon, So with that, the Raptors have to decide. And if you are the Raptors, you have a bunch of guys that are just wasting their talent in Canada. I'm sorry. They're wasting their talent in Canada. They're wasting their time in Canada. They're wasting their lives in Canada, just like everybody else who lives in Canada. Sorry to take a shot at all those Canadians, but I just don't like Canada. I don't know what it is, man. I just don't think basketball should be in anywhere but the U.S. That's just me. But we look at these prospects. We look at these guys that they're good players. They have some good players on this team. And if they would plug these guys in on other teams, on other squads, we're talking some possible deep playoff runs for these teams that bring in these acquisitions from Toronto. And let's start off. Well, so Pascal Siakam, of course, he's always going to be up there as, the big name. Like, oh, Siakam going to go. Man's making $30 million. Nobody, unless it's some crazy salary dump, 6-team trade, everyone's slapping a bunch of crazy contracts in there and picks all over the place. Siakam's not leaving Toronto. It would take a lot for Siakam to leave. We can pretty much say that Pascal is going to pretty much stay with the Raptors. I'm talking more Fred VanVleet. I'm talking Gary Trent Jr. I'm talking OG Anunoby, guys like that. And if we're talking from a standpoint of where he'd be most successful, I like Fred VanVleet in Dallas. That would be my number one choice. You ask, where would Fred VanVleet have the most success? Would be in Dallas. It would be with the Mavericks. Nobody but Luka. Okay, the Mavericks would be a bottom 3 team in the West without Luka Doncic. It's just true. Luka is second in the league in usage percentage. You throw Fred VanVleet on that team, no one else can make a play, bro. Guys can knock down some shots. Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, guys can knock down some shots, but nobody can make plays, bro. Doncic seems like the only one that can make plays for this team. You add a guy like Fred VanVleet, the guy's top 15 in assists. He's averaging, I don't know how many assists he's averaging, but he's top 15 in assists. The man can dish the ball out. The man can hit shots. He'd be perfect in Dallas. The only thing is Dallas has nothing to give up. Nothing. No draft assets, barely any draft assets. Barely any talent. There's no way they're getting Fred VanVleet. But if we're just talking from what I'd like to see Fred VanVleet go to the Dallas Mavericks. Is it going to happen? No. Realistically, though, where he could go, and this is the interesting, I got a package deal. Baby. 2 in 1. I got both Gary Trent Jr. This would be a crazy one. And let's go to the NBA trade machine and look at this. I got Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet to the New York Knicks and I'm adding on Evan Fournier's nasty contract, total waste, and Derrick Rose's nasty contract as well, bust as well. I mean, not really I'm just salty from the time, he tore his ACL, tore his MCL, and then tore his MCL again with the Bulls. I'm just salty because of that. How many titles we could have had? How many titles we could have had 8 titles by now. Either way. Throw Derrick Rose's contract in there. Throw Evan Fournier's contract in there. You get Fred VanVleet and you get Gary Trent Jr. You add those 2 first-round picks that they have. They have the 17th overall pick and the 21st overall pick. One of them from Dallas. It could go up or down, of course, depending on what happens. Either way, you get 2 first-round picks for these guys. I think this would be the perfect trade for both teams because the Knicks do not know how to draft, bro. The Knicks do not know how to draft. The Knicks are just that guy that the Knicks are that guy that calls himself like, oh yeah, dude, I do crypto, bro. I do crypto, even though all they're doing is just buying Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, man, I do some crazy cryptocurrency research, bro. You look at their portfolio, all it is freaking Bitcoin. The Knicks are kind of the same way, bro. And when they try to branch out and do something different, they totally fail and they totally just bankrupt their account. That's how the Knicks are. The Knicks stick to talent that they know. The talent that we already know is good, and they pay them. That's what they do. They just gotta stop trying to be different, be fancy, and trying to be like Pat Riley in the Miami Heat and grabbing undrafted guys and making them become, all-stars. That's just not the Knicks mentality. The Knicks mentality is to let someone else do the work of finding that player, and then we're going to pay you all the money when the time is, up for you to get a contract. We're going to pay you. The Knicks need to stick to that. That's what the Knicks do well. Big Apple, New York, you have that advantage over almost any other team. Bring people in because of the city, because of the stadium, because of just, you're the New York Knicks, bro. You have the power to just pay people to come and play for your squad, and you need to use that to your advantage. And I think in a situation like this, stick to the talent. Fred VanVleet, proven talent. This is a guy that in the playoffs, both these guys, I trust both these guys in the playoffs. You look at this team, you got Jalen Brunson as a playmaker. You got, it's not like they really need the playmaking from Fred VanVleet, but they could use his veteran leadership, his shot making. This man won a title back in 2019. These are 2 guys that in the playoffs, you're going to have guys take some big shots and make some big shots. Do I trust Quentin Grimes to do that? Not really. Do I trust, the only guys I really trust doing that is Julius Randle and maybe a little bit RJ Barrett, even not that much for RJ Barrett. Mostly trust Julius Randle in clutch situations. You add Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent. These are 2 guys that can knock down shots when you need them. Absolutely, they can do that. And I think you have to give up 2 first-round picks and you're dumping salary. I think this is a win-win for both of these teams. I ended up getting into a New York Knicks rant when I'm trying to talk about the Raptors. Either way, I think the Raptors make out in this trade as well because you're getting 2 first-round picks. And I know you got to take on some salary, but you're going to be rebuilding anyway. I don't think it's the biggest deal. So at the end of the day, I think the Raptors need to flip those 2 guys, try to get 2 first-round picks, maybe trade Chris Boucher and OG Anunoby as well. Try to get as many young prospects and picks as possible. It's time for the Raptors to move on, dude. You won that title back in 2019. Move on, man. Let it go. So I got the Toronto Raptors. That's what I think, that at least what I think they should do. We will see if they are buyers or sellers at the end. Okay, here we go. Oh, bro. Okay, I probably needed to take some aspirin before this. My head is already hurting just from looking at the name, bro. I got the Chicago Bulls now. We're talking about the Bulls now. Okay. The Bulls cannot do much. The Bulls really don't do much anyway. The Bulls, they are going to disappoint me at the trade deadline the same way they've disappointed me all season, the way they've disappointed me pretty much my entire life. That is what the Bulls are going to do. They are needy for a playmaking point guard because the Lonzo Ball experiment absolutely failed. They were in the lab putting this Lonzo Ball concoction together thinking, oh, bro, this thing's going to be insane. It's going to cure cancer. Lab ended up blowing up. It was like Chernobyl. The lab just, blew up and the radiation just went everywhere and it's a big old mess now. That's what the Lonzo Ball signing feels like. It's been a bust. It's been official shit. The Bulls need a playmaking point guard now that Lonzo is not there and he's collecting dust. on the bench, and that is where Trey Jones of the San Antonio Spurs comes into play. Jones is averaging 6.4 assists under Greg Popovich this season, and I'm looking at two guys for the Bulls that they're going to flip. These are the two puzzle pieces I'm looking at for the Bulls. Alex Caruso's in rumors, but I just don't see that happening. I'm looking at Patrick Williams and Kobe White. These are the two pieces that if the Bulls are going to make a trade, if the Bulls are going to do something, those two guys are going to be the guys that are moved in order to make that deal happen. Go back to the trade machine. I got Kobe White and Patrick Williams to the San Antonio Spurs for Trey Jones, Josh Richardson, and that doesn't seem like enough, so I feel like you need to throw also a protected first-round pick in there as well. I know Josh Richardson's not the best shooter. I had to throw him in there, though, because the Bulls can't just afford to give up Kobe White, a shooter, and not get a shooter back. So Josh Richardson in return as well. This isn't the sexiest trade. What my number one option would be for the Bulls is to get Mike Conley. Dude's making $22 million. That shut that down pretty quick. Making too much money. You have to go. I'm looking at friendly contracts. Trey Jones is making $1.7 million. That's perfect right there. Josh Richardson's not the best, but you also get a top 10 protected pick as well because Kobe and Patrick Williams are playing decent basketball, so you don't want to just give them up for Trey Jones and that's it. You also want to get that protected first in there as well. Not the sexiest trade. It's not a trade that you're going to look and be like, oh, yo, bro, like we got a chance against the Bucks now, bro. Like we can, like, yo, can we beat Giannis? No, it's not going to really change anything, dude. Like it's still going to be at best a first round exit. At best, the Bulls have a first round exit. And even with this trade. So with that, I just think Mike Conley would be the perfect scenario. Again, with the money, that just can't happen. And there's just not a lot of guys out there that are contributing that teams are willing to get rid of. And the ones that, the rebuilding teams that are willing to get rid of guys on a friendly contract, there's not many of them. Trey Jones is really one of the only ones that I could find. So I think this trade just makes sense. It's just one of those trades that you look at, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So with that, Bulls can't do much. We are still in debt to the Orlando Magic for Vucevic. You know what I mean? I keep forgetting. I look and I'm like, oh shit, we don't have our first round pick. Like again, I'm gonna look like 10 years. I'm gonna be on my deathbed, bro. I'm about to be dying. I'm gonna be looking at like the draft coming up. I'm like, oh yo, we owe the Magic another first round pick. It's like 2080. It's like, oh yo, we owe the Orlando Magic another first round pick for Vucevic. You know what I mean? It just seems like we can't get out of that debt for Vuce, but. Bulls just don't have a lot of assets, a lot of things to give up. So I think this trade just makes the most sense. Either way, no matter what they do, they need to go out and get a playmaking point guard. So we'll see what the Bulls do. This headache is really getting to me. I need to move on. Okay. All right. And this is the most intriguing team to me, man. I love this one because we did not expect this team to be here. Let's talk about the Utah Jazz. This is a team that we talked about. They are going to be bottom of the West. They are going to be fighting for the French assassin, Wabanuman or Wabanaba, whatever the dude's name is, the French assassin, the number one overall pick, the next LeBron James, as they say. So Utah is in a weird spot. This is a team that was supposed to be fighting. Now they are 10th in the West, and they are in the play-in tournament. Danny Ainge has a big decision to make. Are you a buyer or a seller? And it's going to be really interesting. This team owns 3 first-round picks, so they have the potential to be buyers. They can use those 3 first-round picks and be a buyer and put guys around Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, Mike Conley, Walker Kessler, whoever. They can put guys around these guys. If I'm Danny Ainge, I don't want to tell Danny Ainge what to do. Probably just a genius executive, what he did with Boston, and now the blueprint that he has for the Utah Jazz. We can see his vision for the Jazz, and it is a sexy vision. I can tell you that right now, and we can all see that. But if I am Danny Ainge, right? Let's just say I am Danny Ainge for a second, right? Let's just say I'm that smart. What I would do is I would continue to add on to the young prospects that I already have. Trade Mike Conley. I know he's making a lot of money. If you can somehow retain that cap or try and tweak the numbers, try to make that work. Trade Mike Conley, get either young prospects or draft picks back. You have Jordan Clarkson. Trade him for, prospects or a first-round pick or whatever you can get. You know what I mean? I just feel like you need to trade these veterans, bring in more assets, more first-round picks that you can maybe trade on draft night or trade later on, whenever you want to do it, and also set yourself up for possibly getting Wabanama, whatever the fuck the dude's name from France is. Give yourself that opportunity. Because you don't want to be, they always talk about this, you don't want to be middle in sports. You don't want to be middle. You want to be either good, or you want to be either really good or really bad. That's how it is. When the middle doesn't get you anything. You're either competing for a title, or you are competing for the first overall pick. And I feel like the Jazz right now, you have some guys that you can flip. You could get more assets. Danny Ainge needs to take advantage of that, and I believe that that is the direction that he is going to go in. I will not be totally shocked, though, if he is a buyer, just because the Jazz have been very surprising this season, and they are in the play-in tournament. Maybe he uses just one of those, and he's somewhat buying. You know what I mean? He's not going to just totally sell. He's not going to totally put all the eggs in one basket, but maybe he'll, just use a little bit. You know what I mean? There's a little sprinkle. Use one of those first-rounders that he has. The man's freaking rich with all these first-round picks. Why can't the Bulls be like this? Anyway, whatever. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what Danny Ainge does for the Utah Jazz at the trade deadline. They are the most interesting team. They are at a real crossroads right now, which direction they are going to go. And so we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see what the Lakers do. We always talk about, what are the Lakers going to do? What are the Lakers going to do? I feel like they are just going to stick with Rui Hachimura, and that's going to be their only trade. They really can't do much. John Collins possibly being traded. Always talk about him with the Atlanta Hawks. D'Angelo Russell possibly being flipped for the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's going to be a lot of big names out there. And if Alex Caruso goes, the Bulls officially have reached a new low for me. The Bulls officially found a way to piss me off more than they already do if they trade Alex Caruso. They're just going to continue to get my blood boiling. They're very, very good at that. So we will see what happens. Trade deadline next week. This has been BookSmart, and I'll talk to you guys later.